Hello everyone. So this is video number 2 of my workbook for BCU, BSA, my master's program here. I haven't been able to get to this all week other than the first night. I have a lot to talk about. Hopefully the video won't be too incredibly long. I'll try and edit out all the ums to make it a little bit shorter. So I don't have anything scripted on this. I just want to let you guys know that this is coming straight out of my heart, really. No scripts whatsoever, but I might occasionally look down. My phone is down here and it has my schedule for the latest week. I wanted to talk about each of the classes, so I need to kind of refresh my memory of what happened in what order. Tuesday we had period movement, which was with Lou Papillon again. We have her on Monday and Tuesday mornings at 8:45. Monday mornings is a little bit more difficult because the organic movement is really physical, at least for me. Maybe some other people who are slightly better shape are able to do it. But Tuesdays is period movement. The first day we kind of walked around in proper posture and holding ourselves properly. We also learned how to bow properly, which was really cool. I liked walking around and bowing to people. That was actually fun and interesting. And then we also were given an assignment, a little bit of research on what to look for with like the clothing. Me and Jared got gentlemen's clothing of the Elizabethan era, and we've been working on that. We have a website that we're working on, and once it's all finished and we've gotten it turned in, I will let everybody see it. I think it'll be pretty cool. So after period movement, we moved to technical singing, which was with Ben. And Ben is super funny and really nice. I enjoy his class. Technical singing is like individual work. So he has us pick a song that we want to work on, and then he's going to fine-tune our voice and help us learn how to do things like open up certain parts of the throat and loosen them up and whatnot. We've already learned a few things like tongue tension. Tongue tension is a big one. In order to get rid of tongue tension, take your tongue and you put it in between your lip and your teeth, and then you swirl it around a whole bunch of times one way, and then you swirl it around the other way that same number of times. So you do 8 clockwise, 8 counterclockwise, then you do 4 clockwise, and then 4 counterclockwise, 2 clockwise, and then 2 counterclockwise, 1 clockwise, 1 counterclockwise 8 times. And they also taught us several other things like how to siren. You make an NG sound, and you have to set your tongue in a specific place. So the tip of your tongue goes to the bottom of your teeth. The wide parts of your tongue go to your top molars. And then you go. And there was a lot more to the class than just that. We have to bring in sheet music on Tuesday that we want to learn, which I'm going to do all that's known from Spring Awakening. I also did that on one of my Friday classes, but I'll talk about that a little later. And then we moved on to acting skills, a different movement class. This was like period dancing, really. So we did this circle dance where we had guy, girl, and because we have 3 guys and 5 women, we had to make one of the women a man. Start out like holding hands, and then we come in together for a 4 count, and then we do back out for a 4 count, and you always have to start on your right foot. And then ladies will go in for a 4 count, out for a 4 count, and then the guys will go in for a 4 count, out for a 4 count. When you get in as the ladies and then in as the guys, you clap on 4. Then we get back out to our partner and we grab hands. We skipped in like an individual circle, so like around in place, and then we skipped in the great big circle, and then we get back into the circle and hold hands again and go in, out. It all starts all over. So that was fun. And then we learned the box step for the waltz, which I already knew from Hello Dolly back in high school in 2004. It was pretty easy for me to pick up. And then we also like worked with a partner on that, and that seemed really fun. First I danced with Maddie. She and I had a good time. She thinks I need to lead a little bit more, which has always been my problem. I don't really like to push people around when dancing. I like us to go together, and that's what I thought we were doing, but she wanted me to lead more. We switched partners, and when we switched, whoever was the leader the first time had to be the follower the second time. And so my second time I danced with September, and September was pretty good at leading. I think she probably could have used a little bit more force in her movement, but if I can't do it, then why am I telling her to do it, right? So anyway, after movement, we went back to singing, and this time we did ensemble singing. We sang a song written by, I think it was King Henry. I don't actually have the song with me. It's in my locker back at school, but I can actually pull up Ben singing it because I saved his voice on my phone.
Pastime with good company, my love.
It's very simple like that. It's only about 40 seconds long, but I mean, that was a good start. After singing, let me pull back up my schedule here. We went to speech class. We're starting to learn RP, which is Shakespearean tongue. If we happen to be able to do other dialects, they might put it in shows. Like I know David on Thursday was thinking of putting in Southern dialect for those who were country folk in a play of As You Like It. So speaking of David's class, so that's on Wednesday, so let's move on to Wednesday. We start out with acting skills for 3 hours with Alex. He's given us scenes to work with and whatnot. I've been given a scene to work with Aubrey, where you're doing Bassanio and Portia from The Merchant of Venice, which Morgan did last year. So I have Morgan just down the hall from me, and he's very helpful with like words and whatnot and meanings of things. So that's definitely a big stress relief, is having him on my side. Aubrey and I got together yesterday actually, and we worked our scene and we walked through what everything meant, and so we have a really good understanding of everything right now. Very happy about it. With acting class, it was difficult for me at first. It really was. What was difficult was Alex told us that Shakespeare doesn't really use psychology, like modern psychology like we use. I've grown up learning that in a play, everything happens for a reason, that you have to have a reason behind everything. You have to have an objective, a tactic, and you have to have a motivation. I've known of those three things all the way since 2003, 2004, when I worked with Miss Mo in high school. Not having the ability to use those in Shakespeare is really difficult for me. I can't sit there and go, okay, why does my character do this? I just have to trust the text and just utilize what the text says. Yeah, that's my biggest struggle with Alex Taylor's class. And to be honest with you, with just about everybody at this school, they run off of the thought and whatnot that Shakespearean is not psychology based. And I'm a psychology major at my alma mater. So not being able to use psychology, which I have studied, is difficult for me. But I'll get past it. I eventually will. There's a reason why I'm having trouble with it right now, but there's also the thought process in my head is that if I let it go and listen to what these people have to say, I will learn a lot and do a lot better. So that was the struggle with Alex's class. But otherwise, it's a very good class. I mean, it really is. He has a lot to talk about. He's incredibly intelligent, and I enjoy every part of the class. It was just that one particular thing I was having trouble with. I was actually kind of angry, at first hearing about it, but the more I think about it, I think the easier it'll get. But anyway, moving on. Then we went on to our first workshop, and with David Jackson, our director. And he's an incredibly intelligent man, too. I really enjoy listening to what he has to say and what he has to teach us. And again, he works off of the principle that Shakespeare does not involve psychology. He's working with us right now to try and tear down our usual understanding of how theater works and our acting and how we act and whatnot. With him tearing it down, like what he's doing is we have improv that's designed to bring us together as an ensemble. It's almost like viewpoints a little bit, where we take a chair, every single person has a chair, silently as we can, we make a semicircle. And then we have to figure out exactly our position to get the semicircle as nice as we can. And then as a group, we have to set the chairs down silently as we can again. Once the chairs are set, come around the left side, and then sit down as silently as we can. We also do sort of like a three-person game of freeze, where you'll have two people that start doing something, and then a third person will come into the situation as well. After enough time of establishing what it is and letting people use their imaginations a little bit, then a fourth person will tag out the first person. Then they will change the scenario. Pretty much exactly like freeze, except for you don't say the word freeze. This didn't actually happen until Thursday, but it's still a part of the same class. From Wednesday night at 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock, we're in workshop, and then from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. we're in workshop the next day on Thursday, and then we, after our break at 2 o'clock again, 2 until 6, we're at workshop again, and then finally on Friday we're back from 9 to 1 again. So we have a lot of workshop, and that's all basically putting on a show, but you don't have the stage work, you don't have lights, things like that. Just doing the acting in front of a small group of people is what it is. But workshop, on Thursday, he introduced us to this really almost surreal acting exercise where you have to let go of yourself and just put yourself back into your basic primal instincts. So two people start on either side of the room, and they'll face the walls until they're ready. And once you've gone into soft gaze and started just following your basic instincts, you turn around, face each other, and then as your impulses tell you to move forward, you move forward. As they say go back, you go back. If they say go to the side, you go to the side. A few people had gone before me, and they were very sweet. They were also, interesting to see like people's dynamics, like what it's kind of almost seeing exactly how people think of each other. And like when I got up there, I was like, this is gonna be silly. I'm gonna control the whole situation. I'll get across the room, and Aubrey and I will touch hands or something. Who knows? And then it'll be over. As we're going along, I'm stepping closer to her, and she kind of steps back a few times. Like I'll even just shift my weight, and she'll step backwards. I got close enough to her at one point that I could see her eyeballs really well, and they were really sparkly. Like the light was reflecting off of them. They looked like they were really teary, I guess might be the good word for it. But they weren't. She was fine at the whole project. She was happy, and she almost felt like animalistic is what she described it. But I got to that point where I could see her eyes, and they were glistening, and it made me emotional. It made me feel emotional, like I wanted to tear up and start crying. And I just wanted to reach out and grab her and hug her, but we were too far away, and I felt like if I advanced too much, she would run away. And so I held back my basic instincts, and David told me not to do that. I felt bad about it afterwards, and I was like, if I did lunge after her and she ran away or something, and then I did start crying anyway, how would that make me look? I looked like a crazy person or something, so I didn't want to do that. Kind of felt bad, but it was definitely an interesting experience. What else we have done in that class is we were reading through the script. We got the first 3 acts all completely read, and while we're reading through them, we're breaking down what everything means, like really in-depth stuff. Even like references to things that only scholars of that time would understand, unless you look at the footnotes, of course, in the script. So we really broke down what a lot of stuff means. It makes a lot more sense when we do things like that. And the final thing that we did in the class is we kept doing these things that he called surprise, where you would have a scenario where you would have minimal talking. He calls it minimal text. In the middle of this event, so like let's say you're at a bank or a church or a funeral or in an elevator, something happens that makes you just want to leave, that you have to leave now because of that thing. We've done one in an elevator where a girl comes in and starts dancing really hard, and that's what makes us want to leave the elevator. We did one at a funeral where I accidentally bumped the casket off of the table, and the body comes rolling out, and that made everybody want to leave. And then we did one, it was a wrestling match between Maddie and myself, and she was obviously the underdog of the situation, but she breaks my arm, and so because she was the underdog, so people would want to leave because they were betting on me and they're running away from their bookie, or I would want to leave so I could go get my arm fixed. My trainers would help me off, and so that would give them a reason to leave. Maddie would get carried off by people that supported her, that would make them all want to leave. Oh, there's one other thing that we did sort of an improv that connects to the main themes of the book. First theme is like sibling rivalry. The story that we came up with was that one sister hires somebody to steal the paper of another sister who was turning it in her college class, which gave her an F in the class. The other group did one where a guy was moving from a big city to a small city. This theme was the court, the high class people versus the countrymen or the low class people. And his friends from the big city came to visit him, and they made fun of all the people in the country, like calling them hicks and just talking about horrible stereotypes about people from the country. And then he later on went to a supermarket and met people in the country, and they're just the nicest people on the planet, and they actually have like the same amenities that people in the city have, and it's just like showing how the stereotypes are pretty much bullshit. Excuse my language. So yeah, that was the acting workshops. And then on Friday we had one more song class. This one was acting through song. And again, I chose All That's Known. In All That's Known, I didn't quite go as far as I wanted to go the first time I sang through it. So she caught on to that. She's like, well, I mean, this is obviously the first time you've ever sang this song in front of people. You never have to do that again. But now that you know that you can do the song, loosen up a little bit and realize that your character that you're portraying wouldn't have the same energies as you, and they wouldn't have the same mannerism, and try and break out of that. And so I did. I was much more loose and a different person the second time I read it through. So the second time I read it through, I was much more big and open. She was happy about it. And everybody in that class was the same way. They did it kind of meekly the first time, and then they were much more emotionally intact in the second one. And so then after that, we show up at the other class, which we got split into two groups at this point. We had 4 go into the song class and 4 go into what I'm basically calling our therapy class, because I don't know what else to call it. Simon, we have voice tutorial group work, and he calls us in there. The other 4 people are coming out of the room, and they just look like they got the heck beat out of them. They're all crying, and they just look like they feel horrible. So Maddie and Jared and myself and Rachel all look at each other like, what just happened? What are we getting ourselves into? And so we go into the class and we talk about the text a little bit and how it's difficult for each of us individually to understand it and why it's difficult for us. At that point, he starts having us exercise a little bit to get our breathing at a similar pace, and then he has us lay down and he tells us some words, and he wants us to repeat the words. For example, stone. He would have us say stone, stone, stone. Just trying to say it different ways as a response to a question that he would ask. So he would say something like, have you ever had a stone thrown at you? And we would say stone. And then he would say, do you ever feel like stone? We would say stone. However you would respond to it. And then he had us cut some words off of a piece of paper and then lay down, and we have to come up with our own questions. All the while we're trying to picture in our heads things based off of these words. And so here's one of the words here. It says swift. And then we have hand. He had a whole bunch of words for us. I'd say a good 30 or so words. And given those words, we have to come up with a response to them. We'd have to think of an image when pulling up those words. And our class was fine. Nobody really conjured up anything that would make us super sad or anything. I flat out said, what was making me happy, what was making me sad, and I gave perfect examples of it, except for one, which I told Maddie about later on, but I didn't really want to tell anybody else about. And I'm not going to tell you guys about either, so sorry. But we asked the people of the other class later on what the heck happened, and there was one word for one person who had a really bad reaction to it. I don't mean bad as in he shouldn't have that reaction, what a jerk. I mean bad as in there's obviously some bad experiences about that word for this person. I know what it is, but I really don't want to go into detail. I don't want to give away any information about someone that's not mine to give away. But having that huge reaction to it evoked an emotional chain reaction in the rest of the group. That's why everybody looked so sad coming out of that class. Just horrible. I mean, it was kind of more of a therapy session for some people than for others. For me, it was just I don't really want to be here, but I'm going to go through this and just get it over with. That was pretty much my week in terms of class. Outside of class, feeling a little overwhelmed. There's a lot to do with this program. And it's not even like homework, it's just there's so much going on. I have scenes to memorize, and once we know our characters, I'll have to memorize everything that my character or characters has to say. Eventually I'm going to have to start working on my research project. That's going to be a lot of work. Jared and I are working on that website, and even though it's not a lot, it's still more than I was anticipating for the first week. But I mean, that's life. You move on. That's my time, folks. I'm sorry this one was a little bit long, but hopefully you're enjoying hearing about what's going on over here. Thanks for listening in. I'll talk to you later.